What is going on, everybody? My name is Fluffy Ninja, and welcome back to Helldivers 2. This is a little snippet from the, when they went over, all the buffs in the Buff Divers update. This is kind of what that is.
And then we have an additional fan favorite, the Liberator Concussive.
So, we had drum mags lying around.
So it has a drum mag?
Yeah.
So, what is that, 50, 60 rounds?
60 rounds.
Okay.
What this guy on the right said, right there. We had drum mags lying around. To me, that means that they have the concept for this whole customize your weapon thing, and they're just not really sure how to implement it, right? I have done some artwork. It's not good by any stretch of the imagination. And then I have a couple things here from Reddit and stuff like that. So this image most people are familiar with. This was the a concept that somebody came up with to do a Workbench style attachment system for Helldivers. And I think this is a great idea. Being able to have a suppressor, being able to put a laser, a different type of sight, different magazine. I think that's awesome. And I think this would be a cool idea. The problem is I don't think something like this is possible. The reason why I don't think that it's possible, right, is because of stuff like this. So they have been doing Warbonds, which come with a set number of weapons. And then you have stuff like this. This guy made this for Helldivers. This is a Warbond concept called the Phantom Vanguard. Dope fucking name. You get cool black armor sets. And then the main thing that I really want to focus on here is this. The suppressed weapons. The suppressed pistol, suppressed sniper rifle, and a suppressed SMG. Yes, these are from Halo, and this is probably from Black Ops or something like that. The player title, awesome, nailed it. The critical stealth damage I think is cool. I think a decoy grenade would be interesting. Cloak backpack / noise dampener, I think is cool. I don't think that's something that's going to happen though. This is another concept that somebody came up with for Helldivers about recoil compensation, mag capacity, ammo type, fire rate, stuff like that. That's awesome. I think this right here is probably where we'll go. Because this makes sense, right? This makes sense in how they have everything programmed, how they have everything kind of set up. This actually makes sense. This is something that they could implement without really having to change that much, right? So you would do recoil compensator or a suppressor, and then it would just add a little thing on the end of your gun, and it would make it quiet. It would make it easier to control recoil. Capacity would give you bigger magazines. Ammo type would give you a bunch of different ammo types that then they could then use that for future Warbonds. I think that's a phenomenal idea, and I think this is where we're most likely to go, is a weapons mod type deal. Not only that, but they use requisition slips, they use samples. This is probably the best way to implement any kind of Workbench / weapon modification in Helldivers 2. This is probably the best way. There would probably be another segment under this or in this, or what I came up with was this. Was equip, test, modify. So you click the little modify tab, that takes you directly to this. And that allows you to pick 1 to 3 things to put on your weapon. And I think that would be the best way to implement this, is just right here at the bottom, you put a little modify tab. And then a little test tab. That would, there's the space is there for it. I did not do a good job of photoshopping. I don't have Photoshop. I use a free software called GIMP, and it's extremely fucking basic. This is probably the best way to do that. Now, if we went with this style, this would be really cool. This would be awesome. I don't think there's a way to implement this in-game, though. If I'm just 100% honest with you, I don't think there's a way to implement this. The little camo challenges and stuff over here that he has, perfect. That needs to be implemented for a camo system. I think. I'm not 100% sure, but to me, that hits that replayability for a lot of people that are like, well, I don't have a reason to play. Camos are not a great reason to play, but that's what made me stick to COD for so long, was because of camo challenges. And there are people out there like me, like my buddy Josh, that there's something to unlock. I need to unlock it. And we do that. I had Obsidian on a fucking riot shield for MW2. That's the kind of thing that keeps people playing, even if they don't need to. Like, I'm maxed out on samples, 100%, always. And the things that they bring into the game are not enough to keep me coming back. So the thing is, right, there's the two banks of monitors on either side. One is where you kind of do all your stuff for your person, your armor, your cape, your weapon, grenades, stuff like that. This could be on the other side, and I think that would be a good way to implement it, but that's supposed to be vehicles, right? At least that's what we've heard, is that it's supposed to be vehicles. But if they keep with the whole Warbond strategy, then the workbench / weapon customization is not going to be viable. There's no way to introduce weapon customization if we're still getting Warbonds. You have explosive weapons, those all blow up. Okay, the thing that we would have needed in that is this little booster thing right here to do, oh, if you put this on your weapon, very much like this concept shows, that would be down in your ammo type. That would make sense, right? I believe that would be the best way to do it. So my concepts that I have made, again, are not good. They're not good at all. The main thing that kicked it off, right, was my absolute hatred of the Adjudicator. This would make the Adjudicator usable and viable for everything, and that is the introduction of the drum mag. They said they have drum mags laying around. Put them in the game. Literally add this to the Adjudicator, and it makes it amazing. If drum mags are lying around, how many other attachments are lying around, right? Like a suppressor for the counter sniper. Again, these are not good photoshops, I am aware. The Diligence with a suppressor and an underbarrel grenade launcher. The regular Liberator with an underbarrel grenade launcher. Again, these are not good concepts, I'm aware. With a suppressor. The Peacemaker with a suppressor. The Redeemer with a suppressor. And again, my little concept of modify and test. The one thing that I would like to do on the Super Destroyer is have a room that you kind of either teleport to, or it's just a range somewhere in the back that you can test the weapon that you've built. Because it doesn't make sense to do all this thing of, oh, I built my weapon to exactly how I want it, and then the weapon fucking sucks when you get in mission. You should be able to test whatever weapon you create on the Super Destroyer before you go in mission. Or if it's like a virtual thing of like, oh, putting your weapon together, and then it's, there's a bunch of beep boop noises, and then you test it basically in like a video game style or digital simulation, I think would be really cool. But having the Warbond thing very, very much limits what we can do as far as weapon customization. Because I want suppressors in the game. I really, really do. I think it would be a really neat way to change a play style. We can't do that if we introduce a Warbond that is nothing but stealth based. So if we introduce a Warbond that's nothing but stealth based, we cannot then in the future get a Warbond that gives us the ability to put suppressors on everything. Or in the future, get the ability to customize weapons and then put a suppressor on. So they did the update that gave the concussion a drum mag. That should be something that we can then introduce in the future to put the drum mag on any type of weapon we have. Does it make sense for a lot of them? No. Some of them, like the Arc Blitzer and the, Purifier and stuff like that, it doesn't make sense to do those, right? Because they are energy-based weapons. It doesn't really make sense to do that. Whereas if we're introducing a playstyle or like something like this that makes stealth more viable, it kind of reduces the reason to have a gunsmith in the future. Would I love to see this? Absolutely. I would love to have something that could A, turn us slightly invisible like a stalker, B, reduce the sound that we make, and then C, something to distract, whatever enemy with a decoy grenade. But I'm not 100% sure if Warbonds are the way to do that, especially if the community and seeing the absolute support for this thing, for this concept, if the community is supporting this, how would we get to this from the individualized Warbonds that we have now? Unless those Warbonds are just introducing new attachments, that makes Warbonds way worse, though. Because, in this Warbond, you get scopes. People are going to fucking hate that. Absolutely 100%. So you mean the thing that I got the fire shotgun and all of this shit from is now a scopes pack. Now it's a suppressor pack. Now it's a magazine pack. That's dumb, and people are going to hate that. So how do we go from Warbond to Workbench? That is going to be probably the hardest thing that ArrowHead has to work out. I think a Workbench idea is awesome. I don't see it being implemented in a year. Like, I would say from right now until it releases would be a year of concept and trial and error to try and get this to work in a game, especially when your game was not based on this idea at all. Your idea was, let's introduce cool new weapons through a Warbond thing that people can earn in-game. That makes sense for Helldivers 2, how it's built and how it plays. The Workbench idea does not support that at all. The Call of Duty gunsmith idea doesn't work with this concept of a game. You kind of have to build it around that of, I leveled up my weapon. Like, having a weapon level doesn't make sense anymore in this game. If it had been there from the start, it would make sense. Right now, to introduce it almost, 9 months into this game being released, it doesn't make sense to rework the entire attachment system or to introduce an attachment system and weapon leveling or anything like that. It doesn't make sense. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. Is this a great idea on paper? Yes. Do I kind of hope they do something like this for Helldivers 3? Absolutely. That would be awesome. Are we going to see Helldivers 3 in the next 3 to 5 years? Absolutely not. That would be changing the entire concept of what Helldivers is to go to this. The amount of people that want PvP in Helldivers is insane. And you're basically turning Helldivers into Call of Duty. Go play Call of Duty then. Is this a cool idea? Absolutely. And I would have loved to have seen it implemented, but to introduce it 9 months into the game's life cycle does not make sense, and I will not hold my breath for this being introduced. This idea, yes. This idea I think they can probably put together in 6 months. Because it makes sense, right? Because you're not modifying the weapon, you're adding a booster. And boosters are already in the game. So if you bring a booster, it helps all your buddies on the mission, right? For your main booster of, like, I bring the drugs booster all the time because drugs. This would only affect you as a booster. So it would help with recoil, it would help with magazine capacity, and it would help with ammo type, fire rate, whatever other concepts this guy thought of for this. So the modifications panel allows you to equip up to 3 mods or boosters to a weapon. Each modification has 3 tiers, 1, 2, and 3, obviously. Each can be purchased from ship module store using rec slips and samples. Higher tiered mods require rare samples. That makes sense. This is something that I think they could introduce rather quickly, and by rather quickly I mean by next year. And it already uses the in-game economy that exists. This would be perfect. And it wouldn't be that hard. Again, I don't know shit about game development, but I like this concept. And I like what he did here where, oh, you introduce the Mark 1 recoil compensator. Cool, that lowers your recoil capacity. Ups it to, 60 rounds. Incendiary does a little bit more damage. This makes sense from again, not speaking as a game developer, but this makes sense from a development timeline of, hey, we're able to add weapon boosters into the game. Awesome. That is phenomenal. So like maybe the Mark III recoil compensator is actually a suppressor and it makes your shots quieter. That would be cool. Again, there is a sound system in this game of enemies heard you, enemies saw you, enemies are aware of your presence. That's something that I think needs to be explored a little bit more too before we can start doing weapon modification. But this is probably the best idea for weapon modifications being introduced this late into the game's life cycle. This makes sense. This would actually be viable for them to add 1 or 2 of these into a Warbond. And then you can continue with the Warbond concept of, hey, we introduce suppressed weapons. We introduce these kinds of weapons. This makes more sense. And I'm very much hoping that they kind of go about that. Hearing them say, well, we had drum mags lying around, makes me think they know exactly what they're doing as far as weapon modification goes. They have the ability to introduce it. I'm just not sure how they would. And this seems like the best way to do it. That is all I've got for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, I'll catch you on the next one. Later.